C'est bien. Donc, vous pouvez réactiver le son. Activez.
Ok, merci, merci, Monsieur Mohamed, Monsieur Professor Muhammad Mahmoud Shamseddin. Thank you, Professor Muhammad Mahmoud Shamseddin. Thank you, Professor El Hassani, for the kind words you said about Muhammad Zafrullah and for the organization of this conference, especially that is with no fees. So as the conference is organized in the memory of our great Professor Muhammad Zafrullah, the first talk is dedicated to him, to his works. So as a reminder of all his contributions in algebra and in ring theory. So the first talk is presented by Professor Ayman Badawi from the American University of Sharjah in United Arab Emirates. And the title of the talk is Muhammad Zafrullah's contribution to commutative rings. So, Professor Ayman Badawi, you have 30 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with you on this occasion, remembering Muhammad Zafrullah, our colleague. This is informal talk. It will be like chatting, some nice memories with Muhammad, some contribution to mathematics, and so on. In fact, I'm sorry, I thought my talk will be at 2 p.m. in Morocco. I mean, now it's 1:10, I believe. No, not I believe, I know, in the United Arab Emirates. Anyway, last night I calculated the time and I thought the difference between us is 4, but it turns out it's only 3 hours. So I'm glad that Muhammad sent me an email reminding me of my talk. Okay, first I'd like to make a comment on the title of the conference, Young Mathematician, I think. Is that the name, Muhammad? The E-Conference of Young?
Yes, International Conference of Young Researchers in Algebra and Number Theory.
Yes, yeah. And this is kind of, thank you very much for considering me as, young. On February 14, I will be 60 years old. And to feel young, this is, so thank you.
You are always considered very young by your works. In fact, your active research are a research of an active young researcher.
Thank you, Muhammad. I'm just kidding. But the title, young, I said, what? Young? Am I young?
Yeah.
Okay. First, before I talk about Muhammad's work, I'm going to tell you the first time I met Muhammad Zafrullah in person in 1999, I was a visiting faculty at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And maybe I think most of you and all of you maybe know David Anderson. And he was visiting also David Anderson at the same time. So this is the first time I met him. And something about Muhammad in common with me, and we get to talk and know each other more. Both of us were a smoker at that time. So we used to go outside and we smoked together. And in fact, he was a heavy smoker. I'm not sure if you know that about Muhammad. Muhammad Zafrullah was a heavy smoker. He smoked a lot. So I got to know him. And then, you know, we start receiving some email together from time to time, and so on. He has an interesting character, and he's very friendly. Yeah, I can say that. He has his own character, but you have to know how to deal with him, because Muhammad Zafrullah, kind of person, sometimes he feel like paranoid, and maybe you know, this is we all have some kind of things in our life. Okay, so let me tell you briefly about his life and his contribution to multiplicative ideal theory. First, Muhammad Zafrullah, he finished his PhD in mathematics in 1974. And he worked under Paul Mortis Kohn. The last name, you spell it C-O-H-N. And after finishing his, and that was from the University of London, his PhD, 1974. And then the first, I think, 2-3 years after finishing his PhD, he worked in Libya for 2 years or maybe more. And then he left to the United States of America. And there he met many commutative ring or commutative algebraists. One of them is Dan Anderson. Maybe some of you or all of you know Dan Anderson. And Dan Anderson, by the way, died 3 months before Zafrullah. So both of them, they were like 3 months apart. Muhammad Zafrullah died in July, I believe, and Dan in April, 3 months apart. And Dan and Zafrullah, both of them, wrote together many fundamental papers in algebra, in commutative algebra, in particular, multiplicative ideal theory. Like, you know, he has some contribution in the D plus M construction. He made contribution there. He worked on T invertibility of ideals. T invertible, I think most of you or all of you are familiar with that. He worked on almost proofer domain. He worked on factorization domain, T locally domain, H local domain, GCD domain, you know, and he has many contribution in the field of multiplicative ideal theory. I should mention that Muhammad Zafrullah, if you go and try to see him on the AMS Math Science Net, he has 127 publication, 127, and the total citation on the math science net is 1,775. That's the number of citation he has. I can say that in the last, he never stopped doing mathematics, by the way. He never stopped doing mathematics. Just in, in 2022, which is, just last year, he has 4 publications. And they are like in a very respected and reputed journal. Definitely Muhammad Zafrullah has passion and love to his field, to mathematics. And definitely he has, fingerprints in some areas, in some or particular subject in multiplicative ideal theory. Okay, he wrote many papers with, well-known mathematicians like Dan, David, and others. You can see that from his publication. For me, I want to finish up by telling you stories about Muhammad Zafrullah. I call them funny stories. And just to remember him, God bless him. Muhammad Zafrullah in here is the first one. I remember my story with Muhammad Zafrullah. Because dealing with Muhammad Zafrullah, you have to be careful how to deal with him, because you are not sure what he means with his emails. I call it Muhammad Zafrullah sense of humor. I don't think, usually I take it in a positive way. Okay, I can tell you some of the stories with Muhammad Zafrullah. One story, in 1999, I met him. I think I told you that, in Knoxville, Tennessee. And then I went back home. And at that time, I was teaching at Birzeit University in Palestine before I moved to United Arab Emirates. Anyway, then I arrived to United Arab Emirates in 2023. And then like a few months after that, I received an email from Muhammad telling me this: oh, glad that you finally settled down and you left the trouble, behind you. Because, in Palestine at the time I left, things were not really very nice. And then he mentioned something like that. Badawi, recently, I rejected a paper on phi ring. Phi ring is a class of ring I introduced, and I did not like it. And then below that, he told me, by the way, I just received another invitation to review a paper on phi ring written by you, but I refused because I am overloaded with work. So I said, okay, thank you, Muhammad. And, 1 week later, after the email, I received an email from the editor that my paper got rejected. So I was wondering, in his email, is he trying to tell me he rejected my paper, but in direct way or not? So it was kind of funny. For me, I was laughing, you know. It's kind of funny. Like he's telling me he rejected a paper on firing because he didn't like it. And then he mentioned, by the way, he received, you know, another. So for me, I like his sense of humor. Maybe you get my point on that. I can tell you another story about Muhammad. We wrote a book on David Anderson, anyway, and he contributed one chapter. And one time during, preparing the book, we received an email from him, me and my co-editor, Jim Koykandol. Jim Koykandol, maybe some of you know the name, an email, and he's telling us something. And then I noticed on the email, there is a Bruce Olberding, another commutative algebraist, on the email. I start laughing because I love his sense of humor, by the way, Muhammad. For me, I consider it like laughing matter in a way. I said, well, what this has to do with the Bruce? He's sending me and Jim, some information or something, and then he put the Bruce Olberding on the email. And so this is like, in Arabic, they say, الحكي إلك واسمع يا جارة. So it was kind of interesting. I loved, his character is kind of different, but he's very, very sweet, by the way, and very helpful. And many young people approach him, and he has his own, personal web page to, like if you have a question or thing like that, he will be more than happy to help a student with things like that. But these are some of the stories I remember dealing with him. Yeah, here is another one with Muhammad Zafrullah. I think we met again in Cortona, Italy, in one of the conferences. And in that conference, I introduced two absorbing ideals. This is my first talk on two absorbing ideals. And there were many commutative ring theorists there. And, it seems like, many of them, they did enjoy the talk. And after I finished and I was outside, Muhammad Zafrullah came to me and he told me this. I remember that exactly. And I think this is maybe a compliment from him. He told me, you created a cure for an unknown disease. I created a cure for an unknown disease. I said, okay, thank you, Muhammad. But we hope we will not have disease. Yeah, he has his own character. And by the way, he always paranoid about people stealing his work. And maybe many of us sometime, maybe he has right in some cases, and sometimes he's overdoing it. But Muhammad Zafrullah, for me, as Ayman Badawi, definitely, if I have to name the top commutative algebraist in the last maybe century, in the 90s, definitely Muhammad Zafrullah is one on the list. That's from Ayman Badawi point of view. Yeah, another thing about Muhammad, maybe some of you don't know, that he had the kidney problem. So he used to go and do what we call it, washing, or I think once a week or something. So he has this problem. And I think, I think that's enough for me. I thought I just share some memories of Muhammad Zafrullah with you, and thank you very much. I stop here. Hello.
Thank you so much, Professor Ayman Badawi, for all the words you said about Muhammad Zafrullah, and you have shown us the funny personality of Professor Professor Muhammad Zafrullah that we didn't know. You have especially told that he has more than 100 articles and more than 1,000 citations. We thank you also for all the stories you told. For me personally, I laughed a lot, especially when he said that you created a cure for an unknown disease. This is very funny. And also when he rejected your paper and he sent an email and he said it, So thank you very, very much for these funny moments that you shared with us. And without you, I think we wouldn't know that happened. So thank you very much, Professor Ayman Badawi. And if anybody can ask something or had more information, we have 5 minutes to do. So all the participants are welcomed to say everything they want or to ask something, but briefly, please. So I don't know, Muhammad Mahmoud Shamsuddin, if you can activate the sound for those who wants to ask something.
Yes.
So you can raise your hand.
They can deactivate their microphone. Talk freely.
Or you can write it in the discussion.
That's in fact a question that, if you allow me, Professor Umar.
Yes.
I would ask Professor Ayman Badawi to suggest some research questions that Professor Muhammad Zafrullah left behind him, let's say that, or some directions that he can suggest to young researchers to work on. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Ayman Badawi, if you have a response.
Okay, I think the best place to to look at some of the question is his personal web page. He has, I'm not sure, if you don't have it, I will put it now. Just give me a minute. I hope it's still there. I remember that I used to go Muhammad Zafrullah personal web page. Yeah. Okay. I think this is the one I have. Oh, I don't know. I don't see it now. It's gone. But if you are interested, please just email me, and I can. I don't know. I don't see where this web page gone. I don't see it anymore now. He used to have his own personal web page with some comments, some question. And anybody know this?
I saw that Professor Kim had just write lohar.com.
Yes, maybe that's the one. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, I know Kim.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the best, I think, where you can find some of his notes and comments and questions and so on. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ayman Badawi. So if we don't have more questions, Mr. Muhammad Mahmoud Shamsuddin, I think we can go to the other talk.